Hey everyone, welcome to More Layers. I'm Seth Mariano.
And I'm Jordan Smith, and we understand that we are doing this in the middle of the week as opposed to on Sunday like normal. But because of holidays and the fact that our families were visiting at different points, we hadn't really had a lot of time to do this until now. And this was the first open day we had. So we jumped on it. Now, if you have not seen one of our episodes before, this is what we do. Seth and I will have a general topic that we discuss, which is pre-decided, usually after the last episode ends. So that gives us about a week to really flesh out what we're going to say. Although I guess this time it was a little bit more because of delays and such. Uh, we have some questions that we ask pertaining to the topic at hand. We go through those back and forth. And then at the end, there is game time, which usually involves us asking each other quiz style questions or trivia or what have you. And we don't always have a game, but if we do. And then at the very end, we have two sections called News That Bites and News That Rocks. News That Bites is anything, whether it be in our personal lives or something that happened in the public eye, on the news, whatever, that not a maybe didn't go so well. And then News That Rocks is the opposite, where it's something positive that happened. Then we usually make our closing statements. He and I sign off, and then we pick our topic for next week.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And so for today, we're focusing on a topic that um, I guess arguably is a rather hot one, film sequels. And this is something that Jordan has talked in depth about on our show before when he did a solo episode long time ago. So, as always, I have a few questions written down here. And so, the first question: what are some bad reasons to do a sequel film?
Which is definitely a good and common question. I honestly feel like the most common answer would probably tie into money.
I feel like I said something similar, like at the top of my bullet points below that one, merely trying to capitalize on the success of the original. Now, honestly, I can't really think of a specific example of a sequel that felt like it was trying to do that, at least not off the top of my head, but I at least think it's a complaint a lot of people have, though.
Oh yeah, definitely. One example that actually comes to mind, at least on my end, because I feel like this is what happened, is with Frozen 2. Because from what I understand, they only originally planned to make the one, but once they saw how big the first one got, they're like, okay, let's keep this hype train going or whatever, and let's make another one. Uh, so the story might have not added up the whole time, and that's part of the reason why, because there wasn't originally supposed to be a follow-up story. But now supposedly they might even make a third film just because of how popular it is. Yeah, it really depends on the film, the franchise, maybe, and just how long they push it before it gets just to be like, okay, you push this too far. Like, I know with Pirates of the Caribbean, that franchise, like many people seem to at least like the first three, but once like the fourth movie and the fifth movie came out, they're like, okay, this is past its prime.
Oh, how long? How many did they release? Like six of them so far?
I think there's five at the moment. There's Curse of the Black
Oh,
Pearl, Dead Man's Chest, At World's End, On Stranger Tides, and then I think the last one was Dead Men Tell No Tales.
mm. Okay, so at least five.
At least five, yes.
Yes.
I think there were
Yeah.
talks about a sixth one, but we'll see if they actually do that.
As far as I know, Depp has pretty much been fired from the franchise. I guess they'd have to get somebody new or just have Jack killed off or something.
Right, and I even think recently he might have said that he's not returning to the franchise, even if they asked him to come back. But I could be wrong about that last part.
Yeah. And then I put down as a second bullet point another bad reason to do a sequel. You have fewer than 2 original plotline ideas.
So, like, if they only have one possible plotline idea, then just don't make the movie?
Yeah, I would probably recommend no. And probably the films that are most infamous for doing this are the Disney direct-to-video sequels, or at least Little Mermaid 2.
Yeah, a lot of their direct to VHS, direct to DVD sequels, what have you, most of them have not been very well received. And part of that is because the quality of the animation is a lot worse. The story or the plot just didn't need to exist. But yeah, I can't think of too many that people actually liked. And that's also what you could say as trying to capitalize on the success of the original.
Yeah. And then, I don't know why I said this, but I also wrote one other bad reason to do a sequel. There's no relevance between the new film and the old one.
Now, that's a good point to make because usually you want to have the sequel be a continuation of the story up to that point. Otherwise, it's not really a sequel.
Yeah. Like you probably don't want to just, bring back the old setting and bring a whole new cast in with whole new situations. It's probably no, no, no.
Yeah, like a lot of people don't like the more recent Home Alone films because the cast is almost completely different, but the plot is almost identical in a few ways. But because there's pretty much no connection other than the fact that it's almost a step by step rehashing of the first couple films, most people don't like them.
I think I can understand why.
Sure.
Yeah. 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 Now, on a more positive note, I have a question of what are some sequels you've liked and what do you think they did right?
Well, there's certainly a few sequels out there. The first ones that I thought of when you asked this question was the Madagascar films. Like, it's one of the few times I feel that a movie franchise with at least 3 entries manages to improve each time upon the last one. Like, the first one sets everything up, they're in the zoo, they escape, and then in the second one, they're like, okay, how can we take this a step further? Okay, let's give one of them a prominent backstory that they visit in this sequel. Then the third one, let's go even bigger. Although, like a lot of people who've seen the Madagascar films, they will very much recognize the old lady that beats the snot out of Alex, who that was the one issue I had with the third film is that she was completely left out of the movie and in a sense was replaced by this animal control person who was way too full of herself. It's like I personally would have loved to see a duel between these two trying to get Alex.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, and I also a couple of the films I mentioned, have um, have, I guess you could say, merit for upping the scale from the first. I said among the ones I put down, Spy Kids 2, that was one of them.
Okay.
Yeah, the first was at least pretty good, but personally, this one, the second, is probably my favorite entry in the whole series. What I think it did to make it a good sequel, they upped the scale, raised the stakes, kind of enlarged like the environment or the scale of the adventure. And the first one, in a way, was kind of an establishing film, kind of the kid's introduction to this whole spy world. And now, for one thing, you kind of get to see them now in full force, getting like, and now you're getting like the full picture almost of this spy agency, and you get to see them do like a total like professional task for the first time. And then I said Disney's The Santa Claus 2. I think stepped the game up in a way. The production value was even better. There was a sort of interesting news story of now we see the new Santa Claus pretty much settled in by now, and now he's dealing with having to find a Mrs. Claus, and there's this good creative idea of a substitute Santa who becomes something of a villain as the film goes along. And so it was a good kind of creative step up, and again, the production quality was upped, and so that is a strong entry for me.
All right, I can definitely get behind that. I actually have the Santa Claus movies downstairs in my house, although I don't think I've actually watched them yet, so I'm gonna have to do that.
Oh, yeah.
Now, especially since this one came out recently, one that I will talk about is the new Sonic the Hedgehog 2. For those who have not known up to this point, I'm a big Sonic fan, and I was very much excited for this sequel, although I was very skeptical, mostly because most video game movies do not do well, and this one warranted a sequel because of the popularity of the first one, but I still kept my wits about me. But honestly, I think this one was better than the second, or this one was better than the first. And some of the reason for that was because, unlike the first one, it didn't have to set up as much. Because that's the thing about a lot of first movies in a franchise, is that they have, I feel like, the most setting up to do, at least generally speaking. So there couldn't be as much like action or character development in some cases. But the second one added multiple characters. It upped the action, it upped the comedy, at least for me. And it was just a big fun ride. And of course, I won't spoil anything, but the end credit scene perfectly set up a third film. But yeah, really, it's one of the few cases where not only is it a good video game movie, but it's a good video game sequel, like video game movie sequel. So I applaud them for that, and I'm very excited for the third film.
Okay. And so the next sequel that I put down, like what was a good one, what did they do right, was Shrek 2, which if you followed our podcast for a while, you know how kind of closely Jordan and I are connected to that franchise, because we did a production of the musical with the Artists Unlimited organization a few years ago. And so I put down Shrek 2. That is one of my favorite personal movie sequels. With this movie, you've got Shrek sort of adjusting to new married life and having to deal with a not very tolerant dad-in-law, and it's not like when Shrek and Fiona fell in love and they got married and all that prejudice and all that pain went away. There's kind of a return of that in this movie. He still has to pretty much deal with that. And that's kind of a running theme throughout the movie. And the scale of the adventure is upped, and stakes are in a way higher, arguably, and seeing what he's going through and how people respond to him or how characters respond to him, at least the new ones, it makes it easier to really root for him to succeed.
Oh, absolutely. And what I've liked about the Shrek films, at least the first two, I didn't really like the third one as much, and I never even saw the fourth one, so I can't speak on that one. But at least with the first two Shrek films, one of the things I've really liked was how it kind of poked fun at the standard fairy tale, even taking princesses that most people would know from Disney and completely flipping stuff on its head. But with Shrek and Fiona, they go through the whole getting to know each other and not really getting along at first, and then they do get along and they fall in love and get married. And usually with a fairy tale, that's where it stops. It's like they get together and they live happily ever after. And the second movie pretty much says, oh yeah, they will live happily ever after, just not yet.
They will, just not without some stumbling blocks.
Exactly. It's like just because they got together doesn't mean everything's going to be perfect from that point forward. They still have a lot of issues to get through.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I feel like at least classic fairy tale films are probably too negligent to acknowledge the uglier or more difficult side of marriage or relationships. But it's not. It's probably not the most comfortable or pleasant to dwell on or look into. But I think to some degree it should be acknowledged, though.
Oh, absolutely. And this film really does it.
Yeah. The other one I said, what's a good sequel? What'd they do right? One that probably a lot of you out there, and I'm sure Jordan would agree with, Toy Story 2, which Jordan sort of touched on before when he did a solo episode on this topic, which I listened to prepare for this.
Yeah, well, with Toy Story 2, I don't remember what I said in the video, but what I will say now is that one thing that the Toy Story films did that I thought was really clever is that they took the first film where it was a young kid playing with their toys, and they knew they were making this film for kids about the same age. And then the movies, as they were made, at least up to the third one, the movies kind of grew up with the kids. Like the first one, kid was having fun with their toys as a kid normally would. The second one comes the issue of the kid growing up and what's going to happen to the toys. And that was a good thing to do because kids are starting to grow up. They're starting to get tired of some of the toys they used to have. And then the third one has that same kid. Now he has grown up and hasn't really played with his toys as much anymore. And a lot of the kids that grew up with the first one, they are now at that same age where they're going off to college and they have to decide what to do with a lot of stuff from their childhood. So not only did Toy Story 2 and even 3 make good sequels because of the story and the characters and the good continuation of the first film, but they also made it so that the original audience of the first one grew up alongside the films.
In a way, I feel like that was me. I was had to have been no more than 2 when the first one came out, and I had to have been, I think, in high school when the third one came out. And I was thinking about just now, like the first one is like, we're introduced to everybody, and Andy is pretty much at that rather early stage where he's a kid thoroughly enjoying all these toys. And then the second film is like set at the crossroads between childhood and his adult life. And then in the third, you see him at that stage where he's about to go to college, about ready to move on from these toys. And it does spend a lot of time, those three, looking at those stages from the toys, or at least Woody's point of view.
Right.
Yeah.
One other sequel that I had thought of was Despicable Me 2. Now, the first one was definitely an interesting case because, of course, it introduced the Minions, which took the world by storm. So a lot of people loved those. And then the first one had an interesting story where a villain becomes a hero because of these girls that he adopted originally for evil intentions. But then he completely changes by the end, and it's like, oh, this is really cool. Then they come out with a second film, and kind of like with Shrek 2, this movie is kind of like, oh yeah, he's a good guy now, but that doesn't mean everything's good. Like, he has some big issues to overcome in this film, as well as the girls that he adopted, the Minions. It showed that he still had a lot of maturing to do. And they even gave little story arcs to the girls, like Margot. She really liked this boy, and then she finds out he's a jerk. And Margot and Edith, they're trying to figure out what's going on, and or not Edith and Agnes. I'm sorry. Agnes is trying to help Gru feel better in terms of being by himself and there's no one around his age that he can fall in love with. And then all three girls, they help him out. And of course, he finds somebody by the end, which is really nice. And it felt really legitimate. But yeah, I just love how, again, like they did with Shrek 2, they showed that just because he's a good guy now doesn't mean everything's going to be perfect.
And finally, there's just one last question here I put. What are some films you might like to see a new sequel to? I have a few down. The first one I wrote was, A Bug's Life, which is probably one of Pixar's more underrated movies. It's one I grew up with. I think I always liked. I think holds up good to this day. I've had a sort of imagination of what a new follow-up or sequel to that would be like, and I thought of like more of a focus on Princess Ada as Queen of the Ant Island, because there's a sort of exchange she has with Flick, like in the middle of the first film, where it's about time for her to be queen, and she's like, no one thinks I can do it. And maybe they could write something where something that focuses on her stresses, her struggling to prove herself as queen. And if they can do something good enough with that, I I guess I would say power to them, and I might like to see it.
All right, I can get behind that.
Yeah.
I was actually thinking that one Disney film that's more recent that I would love to see a sequel to is Tangled. I honestly feel that film got overshadowed a little bit by Frozen, and then I believe Tangled actually got an animated television
Short film
series.
sequel?
Well, short film sequel, and then they also got like a 2D as opposed to like a CGI television series that I haven't seen, but people seem to like. So maybe that could end up being a good sequel, but I would still love to see a fully fledged sequel film because I feel like the first did so many things so well, and I would have loved to see how the story continued from there. Like what happened after Rapunzel got reunited with her family and how the kingdom ran afterwards.
Yeah. And maybe it'd be interesting to see like maybe some new villain wanting to use Rapunzel's golden hair power, or figure out a way to make it come back or something, and maybe they have
Sure.
to fight that threat off.
Yeah, I'd love to see that.
Yeah. I also put down The Founder, which is the more recent film based on the true story of McDonald's, and I think that there's some potential in that because, in the first film we saw pretty much Ray Kroc demanding his way and getting it pretty much every time, and up to the eventual point where he pretty much took over McDonald's completely. Maybe it would be cool to see that kind of turn on its head and him not quite get his way all the time. Like one story, a true story that they could probably highlight was, back decades ago, McDonald's was trying to figure out a way or figure out an item to create that they could sell to people who, by religious law, couldn't eat meat on a Friday. So they offered two different items. One was the hula burger, which was a pineapple and cheese sandwich that Kroc made himself. And then another guy invented the filet-o-fish, and they decided whichever one sold better would be a regular thing on the menu. And if you know the story, the filet-o-fish won, and it's a regular thing today. And it'd be at least refreshing to see Kroc actually get beat at his own game for at least once.
Yeah, that actually would be a decent storyline, even if it ended up being a documentary. They could still play it up that way.
Yeah. It'd be nice, I think, maybe to make a full-length film sort of chronicling what happened, what behind the scenes with Kroc and his colleagues, like after he took over the business,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so that's one. And then the other one I said was Holes, based on the book of the same name, a book that I've read and liked, and the movie was pretty good. Maybe just maybe at least be interesting to see like the lives of all the kids, maybe after Camp Green Lake and that whole thing, or something else.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if I've ever seen the movie, but I know I've read the book.
Yeah. It should be fairly close because the author of the book wrote the screenplay for this.
Okay, that's usually a good sign.
Yeah.
But does Holes only have one book, or is it like a series of books?
Well, there is like a sort of sequel or spin-off called Small Steps, which
Okay.
focuses on just like one of the kids, one of the other kids in who was in the supporting cast.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I never read that, but I know of it.
I was about to say, I hadn't even heard about that until now.
Yeah.
Well, one more that I actually thought of, because I think it technically does have a sequel, but most people have either not even heard of it, and I don't think a lot of the ones who did liked it, but I could be wrong. But in 2004, there was a movie adaptation of Phantom of the Opera starring Gerard Butler. And I personally liked it. I know not everybody liked Gerard's portrayal of the Phantom, but I feel like it was a good story with great music, great characters, and what have you. And the ending shows one of the main characters visiting another main character's grave, and they see an important item already on the tombstone, implying that somebody else had already been there. So there was a sequel to it, I believe, called Love Never Dies. I don't know.
A sequel to the musical, yeah.
And I think there might have been a movie adaptation of it, but I never saw it, so I don't know how good it is. So I'll have to look, but just in case, I would love to see a movie sequel, even if it already exists, talking about what happened to a few of these main characters after the story of the first one ended.
Yeah, and maybe a movie of Love Never Dies, whether it exists or not, would probably be at least worth a one-time viewing.
Sure.
Yeah. 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 I did, leading up to this recording, reach out to my personal Facebook friends and ask them some sequels they thought were good and why. And I got a few responses. Some people mentioned Empire Strikes Back, as you might have predicted. The Bourne series, The Godfather. I think one person mentioned Sonic, and yeah, and they talked about stuff like like doing a good job of not milking a formula, or an arc, a story arc developing throughout the franchise or something. Yeah, yeah. So I got a few good responses.
Now, when you say Bourne, I'm assuming you mean Jason Bourne?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's good that people are responding. That is definitely a good thing.
Yeah. 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 I kind of on a side note, I did think of what makes the Empire Strikes Back work, and this is probably similar to what you said in the earlier episode about like, for one thing, in the original entry, I mean, we don't really see that much development to the character of Darth Vader. We pretty much just know him as a sort of authoritarian villain who's threatening to wipe out the universe or whatever. And but then, pretty much come Empire Strikes Back, we get to see me a little bit, at least, deep into him, um, and then famously, it's revealed that he is Luke Skywalker's dad, and so it's kind of a step up, I guess.
Yeah, and don't they kind of reveal that Vader is his father right near the end of that film, and it leaves people with like a bit of a shock value if they've never seen it before?
There is that like that classic scene late in the going where Vader has been dueling Luke, and he cut off his arm, and he's hanging for dear life on a pole or something, and then he slowly reveals, "I'm your dad."
And there's all the lines that follow immediately after that everybody quotes, where it's like, no, that's not true, that's impossible. Or like, search your feelings, you know it to be true.
Yeah. All right, well, I guess that's all we've got for that section. Now it's the part of the show we call game time. So I have a few questions. Do you have something?
I honestly don't. I've had a lot going on these past few weeks in my personal life,
It's
so I
all
didn't
right.
think to.
No problem.
All right.
I do have a few questions though.
Okay.
And they're all kind of based on this little recurring theme of Artists Unlimited, based on shows you've been in with them, as far as I know.
Okay.
So, yeah. Hopefully these are easy enough. So I'm gonna start with, what Oscar-winning actor played Walt Disney in the film Saving Mr. Banks?
I believe, and I remember this because I saw it once and it was really good. I believe it was Tom Hanks.
Yes, it was. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Jordan played Mr. Banks in the AU production of Mary Poppins, which I also was in attendance for, one of the performances of.
Yes, I was Mr. Banks, and it was quite the sophisticated time, let me tell you.
Nice.
Thank you.
All right. And this one, I wrote with Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat in mind. But this isn't really like trivia about the musical necessarily, but the story. In the biblical story of Joseph, what crime was Joseph falsely imprisoned for?
See, that is a good question, and I know it has to do with his master in Egypt's Potiphar's wife. But I can't remember if it was because she claimed he tried to sleep with her or he tried to abuse her.
Yeah. You're in the ballpark anyways. He was falsely accused of rape.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I was heading in the right direction.
Yeah, I guess you kind of got it there.
Yeah, I just couldn't remember the exact cause. Like, I know she was constantly telling him, come be with me tonight or whatever. And he just refused, and she got upset and then falsely accused him of that. So he got imprisoned.
Yeah. All right, next one. All right, in Beauty and the Beast, which of these desserts is not mentioned in the song Be Our Guest? Cake or pie?
Cake or pie? Let's see. I gotta fast forward to the lyrics.
Sure.
Okay, so there's a line partway through where they go beef ragu, cheese souffle, pie and pudding on flambe. So the one that they don't mention is cake.
There you go.
Yeah, they definitely show cake, but they don't say it.
They mention just about everything but cake.
Yeah, go figure.
All right. Next, here's one relevant to both of us. What Disney song is sampled in the travel song in Shrek the Musical?
The travel song?
Yes. Now you sang this.
Oh, they did kind of like a joke reference to Circle of Life.
There you go. Circle of Life. Yes.
Yeah, and I remember that now because we're supposedly walking through a sunflower field and we look behind us and there's just this person going, "Nah, there's a green man and a donkey."
Yeah. Okay. Then we've got in The Wizard of Oz, what Shakespeare play is quoted in the song "If I Only Had a Heart"?
What Shakespeare play?
Yeah.
Oh man,
Now this is a number you were in as well.
I was about to say, because I was a Tin Man, and I remember singing that song. But what was the Shakespeare play mentioned?
Or quoted. Did I say mentioned? Maybe I should have said quoted if I didn't.
Let's see. I'm trying to think of all the Shakespeare plays, and if any of them sound familiar. But honestly, I'm struggling on this one.
All right. It is Romeo and Juliet.
Was it?
There's picture me a balcony above, a voice sings low. Wherefore art thou Romeo?
Okay, now that you say that, it's starting to come back to me a little bit. It's still a little bit fuzzy, but I do kind of remember that.
Okay. All right. All right. I wrote this next one with Seussical in mind. This isn't really trivia from like the Seussical show itself, but it's Dr. Seuss related.
Sure.
What actor and comedian played the Cat in the Hat in the live-action film?
Good old Mike Myers.
Yes. Yeah, did you see that one?
I want to say I saw it once all the way through, but only once, I'm pretty sure. Or at least I saw a good chunk of it.
Well, I think if they got nothing else right, they got the production value right. The visual, very good.
Well, sure. I think a lot of people were still not very fond of it, and part of that was because of the obvious jokes aimed towards adults there that kids shouldn't repeat. But yeah, I do remember that the visuals were still at least pretty good.
Yeah. And I got just one last one. This is a Little Mermaid one. So, what Hamilton star is voicing Sebastian in the upcoming Little Mermaid remake?
The live action remake?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I can't imagine it's Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Now, I think he's probably making original songs or something for the movie, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, like, I haven't seen Hamilton, so I don't know all the actors' names. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure, actually.
Daveed Diggs. He was the, I believe, the original Thomas Jefferson and Lafayette in Hamilton on Broadway.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know I've heard the name. I just didn't know who from Hamilton it was.
Yeah. We'll see how that turns out, I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. All right. That just leaves us with one last section: news that bites and news that rocks, as Jordan mentioned earlier. And we'll let Jordan go first. What do you got that bites?
What I got that bites is the whole trial going on right now between Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. And the reason why I say it bites is because nobody wants to see a trial like that. And the subject matter is domestic abuse, both of them accusing the other of it. And of course, it's very divisive. So there's a lot of people on both sides. And that's one thing that hurts me to see because I don't I don't really like seeing people go up against each other like this, but that's a big deal right now. I think they're about 9, 10 days in at this point, and they're still going. So hopefully it gets resolved in the near future, one way or the other.
I think the troubling thing about that for me is uh, I don't know who's lying, who's telling the truth, or what's true, what's not true. And, like, like anything at this point is debatable, I guess.
Oh, sure. There's a bunch of things that are up in the air at this point.
Yeah. I had one thing that bites. Not exactly the most scandalous thing, probably. It's something I read about on suggest.com. There was a contestant on Jeopardy, Nicole Wachtel, um, who apparently, for whatever reason, people were complaining on social media about her kind of shrieking voice. Like, people saying stuff like, could you yell a little louder, or I shut off the TV and I can still hear her. Like that's not really necessary stuff. I mean, if you can't stand it, just shut up. I guess I don't know what else to say.
So it was just like she was really loud.
Yeah, I guess I don't really get it. It didn't really say, hey, what exactly, if it was something that was going on throughout. The article was frankly rather vague about it.
All right. It's definitely strange. I mean, if people were that desperate to watch but were frustrated by her voice for whatever reason, they don't have to go to social media to talk about it. That could just be how she talks, but they could just mute the sound if they wanted and then throw in the subtitles so they can still see what's being said. But yeah, I see no reason why they would get upset over something like that, especially to that extreme.
Yeah, I think it's just mean. I don't want to be mean to you guys who are doing this, but it's just out of line, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. All right. So what have you rocks?
For news that rocks, I am very happy to say that my family visited not too long ago, including my new niece, who I finally got to meet in person for the first time.
Yeah. This is his older brother's daughter.
Yep.
Yep. Who was recently born. Yep.
And she was very happy. She was very healthy. She had a lot of energy, and one of the things that seemed to be her favorite while she interacted with me was when my sister would pick her up so that her legs were dangling in the air, and she would make it so that she lightly tapped me with her foot as if to kick me and knock me over in a playful way. And that just made her giggle so much. It was fun to watch.
Oh. All right. Sounds like you had a good time.
Definitely so.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just for my thing that rocks, it's just an interesting video I saw while my brother was in town. He showed us. There's a guy on YouTube called Mr. Beast. I don't know if you've heard of him. I hadn't before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He is a really big name on YouTube at this point.
Well, some time ago, he did a video based on the concept of the Korean TV series Squid Game, which you can stream here in America. Is it on what, Netflix? Is that what it's on?
I'm pretty sure it's on Netflix. Yes.
Yeah. And so Mr. Beast did this video that I just saw, where they they pretty much like recreated all the challenges in this fictional TV series, Squid Game. So it's kind of a real life Squid Game where one of 456 people would in the end win $456,000. Yeah. Yeah, and they pretty much, as far as I know, they made it like the real show. Had like the glass bridge, the red light, green light, and just about, I guess, like everything you'd see on the show. And it was, even though I never saw the actual show, I think I was really into this video, and I think it was, I think it's worth at least a one-time viewing.
All right. Like you, I had never seen the show, but I got enough of the concept to the point where I made the script for a video on the YouTube channel talking about which Sonic character I think would most likely win. But yeah.
Yeah, I guess, is this on One Up Binge?
It is.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a YouTube channel that Jordan has been working as a sort of writing contributor to lately.
Yeah, and they just released a couple more videos that I worked on not too long ago. So there's plenty of options.
Yeah. Okay, so I think that does it. And thanks everybody for listening, streaming, and check out all of our episodes on YouTube, Facebook, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. And any questions, comments, any ideas, send them our way, and please keep in touch.
Absolutely. And if you have suggestions for future episodes, or if you think there should be something in general that should be talked about on the show, please let us know. We are always open for suggestions.
Well, thanks again, and we'll see you in maybe about a couple weeks, because I think Jordan's got something on Sunday, so yeah, so we'll see you soon, hopefully.
Yeah, I got work until the time we would normally start on Sunday, but we'll figure something out, I'm sure. But yeah, in the meantime, check out all our other episodes, and we hope to see you soon.
Yeah, check out our whole series on the platforms I mentioned, and see you soon.
So long, everyone.